Hello everyone. I will be doing my argument on A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. My argument is, in A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, the consequences of greed can be seen in Scrooge's change of character throughout his life. Scrooge's behavior in the present for most of the novel reflects his cold and uncaring demeanor, showing how he was tainted by greed. Near the start of the story, two men approach Scrooge requesting funding to help the poor. To Scrooge's persistent refusal, they explain that many of them would rather die than endure impoverished circumstances, to which Scrooge replies, if they would rather die, they had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. This shows how uncaring Scrooge has become because of his greediness, and made him into a self-entitled, cold-hearted person. Every idiot who goes about with "Merry Christmas" on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding, and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. This quote conveys how grumpy Scrooge is. He is very irritable and mad as a consequence of his greed. The Ghost of Christmas Past shows Scrooge events from his memories that make him rethink his values, including his desire for money, regarding who he has become. The ghost pokes at Scrooge, calling Fezziwig's party a small matter, prompting Scrooge to explain, say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. Scrooge, having connected to the scene of Fezziwig's party from when he was younger, was quick to respond defending it. This causes Scrooge to reflect on how he has changed, as he realizes how he used to be happier when he appreciated things besides wealth. When witnessing a scene in which Scrooge's fiancée is ending their engagement, she states, I release you, with a full heart, for the love of him you once were. This shows how she has lost interest in him, because he has changed as a person, becoming more greedy over time. The Ghost of Christmas Present teaches Scrooge how his actions adversely affect the world around him. Scrooge watches the Cratchit family at Christmas, knowing their poor circumstances. They had just a small pudding and goose, and Scrooge knows he doesn't pay him enough for anything more. Scrooge feels bad seeing these nice people trying to make the most of the little they have, when it's his responsibility to give them the money they need. Tell me Tiny Tim will live, Scrooge begs the ghost. The ghost responds using Scrooge's words. If he liked to die, he had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. This event causes Scrooge to identify consequences of his greed. It forces him to reflect on his previous statement about letting the poor die with a new perspective, in which he realizes he inadvertently made a death wish on a poor child. Following the ghost of Christmas yet to come, Scrooge finds what people really think of him because of his selfishness, since he is no longer alive to hear it. Scrooge hears people that stole from his dead future self justifying themselves, saying, why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was struck with death, instead of lying gasping out his last there alone by himself. The people comment on his clearly self-serving lifestyle that resulted from his greed. Not long later, Scrooge witnesses the Cratchit family grieving the loss of Tiny Tim. Since they didn't have the money to support him because of his disabilities, he died. This causes Scrooge, being Bob's employer, to feel responsible for his death. His greed interfered with his humanity, resulting in the death of Tiny Tim. At the end of the story, Scrooge wakes up from bed on Christmas Day, filled with energy to be a better person, putting his greed and selfishness behind him. The story states, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant. He is much happier after letting go of his desires for wealth. When Bob comes to work the next day, he is greeted by Scrooge, who informs him, Bob, my good fellow, then I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family. After seeing how his family struggled, he feels it necessary he be paid more, showing Scrooge's bettering when letting go of his greed. Throughout Scrooge's life in A Christmas Carol, he becomes increasingly consumed by greed. This greed comes with consequences for Scrooge, as he loses those he loves, witnesses the negative effects of his actions, and lives an unhappy life. Following along with the lessons given by the ghost of Christmas past, present, and to come, Scrooge learns to let go of his greed. Here's my works cited page.